everybody. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whichever part of the world you are right now. We are very excited to have you here because this is going to be an extremely informative session. We are here to listen and learn from the best of the best in the space. So when it comes to universities, no one needs an introduction to Carnegie Mellon University. It's one of the world's topmost universities, and it is our pleasure here at Galvanize Global Education to host the Admissions Director of Carnegie Mellon University's master's programs at Tepper School, J.R.R. McGrath, as well as delegates from ETS, the organization behind GRE and the TOEFL and so many tests like that. And we are going to meet Michelle and Theresa as well. And you're going to have a lot of questions answered. So this is going to be a very informative session. And I hope you have a pen and paper with you so you can take down notes, or if you're, if you prefer to take it on your phone or type, that's fine. But I'm very impressed with the quality of the questions that we have got from you all. And you're going to get some extremely insightful and relevant answers today. So without further ado, let's jump right in to today's session. My name is Pavitra Srinivasan, and I will be your host. I'm the founder of Galvanize Global Education. And like many of you, I was once a student in college, did my undergraduate degree in electronics and communication engineering in India. And it was always a dream of mine to study abroad. And kind of, as luck would have it, went through the journey, did not have much guidance or what to do and how to do it, but very fortunate to have received a fellowship from Stanford University. And I worked in the Bay Area in the tech field. But throughout, I think what I really imbibed at Stanford was learning how to create positive impact in a scalable manner. So more than the subject that I studied, which is digital signal processing and image processing, I was excited about creating the impact at scale. So I wanted the journey that I had and how my life was transformed through my own personal experience of studying abroad at a good university. I wanted to see how that can happen to millions of people, right? And because it did change my life and that of my families. And that is how Galvanize Global Education was born. So we provide end-to-end personalized solutions for everybody who wants to pursue a global degree, right from the test preparation to admissions counseling. So for whether you want to do a bachelor's, master's, doctorate, MBA, whatever degree that you want to pursue, a diploma. And we also help with the last mile solution, right? And we're pretty much people who have experienced the value of quality education and how it has transformed our lives. And it is our mission and passion to be able to give it, to help enable that for so many students like you. So at this point, I think it's very exciting to know from you all, what degree do you want to pursue abroad? Let's take a few seconds. All right, time's running out. Okay, very interesting statistics, but not surprising especially if you are from India. I think I can see why you would like to do a master's in STEM programs and how that's going to be adding value to your career. Definitely interesting to see PhDs and MBA aspirants as well. So that's great. So you're going to love this session because we will have a lot of answers for you, especially on the master's side of things. So this is this is what you have all answered today. Great. Okay, so now let's go on to the next part of our session. A little bit about Galvanize Global Education, right? So it has been a very rewarding journey because we have been digital-led and tech-first right from our inception. So we have helped students from so many countries, more than 60 countries, do their study abroad journey, and it's very heartening to see the impact that we have made at a global scale. And when you look at the kinds of countries where students aspire to study, we have helped our students, working professionals, pursue their higher studies in more than 16 countries, and 18 now, latest count, and more than 1,000 universities. So here you can, these are some great resources that I wanted to share with you, since you are aiming for to pursue your higher studies abroad. Definitely the J.R.R, the SAT for undergrad, vocabulary app. So we have got all these apps on Android and on the App Store. So do check it out. We will be sharing the links here. These are highly rated apps. We've got more than 1 million downloads for our mobile apps all put together. And we're still at 4.7 stars. So pretty good, if I may say so. And I think that's, to a large extent, it's because our product development is informed by the experiences of my team and me, and we have been through the study abroad journey ourselves. So our experiences and reflections, we try to bring it onto our products. And similarly, this is a great time to check out what people have to say on Quora about Galvanize Education, Global Education. So do check it out, which brings me to a little bit of to explain how we actually help students throughout the journey. So in addition to our free resources, we do have test prep courses that are all online that you can take, where we have demonstrated a consistent score improvement of 20 percentile. And we also have online admissions counseling services. And the reason I keep saying they're online is because that is what has, helped us generate this worldwide impact. Right, we've had students from more than 20 countries have signed up for our admission counseling services, and we've got a 99% success rate for everybody who has followed our admissions process, right? So, and they have received admissions to accepted to more than 140 specializations, right from data science to quantum physics to forestry and so on. Right. So that, with that being said, I would like to, I know you have many, many of you might be interested in different fields, but irrespective of which specialization you're targeting, there is something that universities do require. And I would like to talk to you about this very briefly, because since a large, most of you are from India, let me actually give the context, right? In Indian colleges tend to give importance to your academics, which is, for lack of, well, the best measure that you can get is your CGPA or your transcripts, right? And pretty much these numbers are the determinant of where you can get accepted to. But universities abroad, and especially the good universities, they are very different, because they have a holistic perspective on the entire process. They take a holistic approach to the admission process, right? So in addition to your academics, universities will want to look at your test scores, the internships you've done, the various projects, the research work you've done, your statement of purpose, which is the essay you would be writing about, that describes your why you are a good fit for this program, and what you intend to do after your degree, and how you will put it to use. And similarly, letters of recommendation. So it's a very holistic mix that universities are going to look at, and you will learn more about it in today's session. The reason I'm talking to you about these factors today is that a lot of people who think that I have not I missed getting into the IITs for my undergrad and things like that, right? Who might have not gotten into the best of the best universities for your undergraduate education in India, because the only determinant for those universities, for the vast majority of them, is a number on a test, right? Whereas the universities abroad are very different. And therefore, just because you didn't do well in your academics, but you're very good at your projects, your internships, and you built some amazing tools, for example, you have the opportunity to get into a really top school as well. And I would like to stress this today, because a lot of our students, when they come to Galvanize, they wonder, okay, how can I get into a top university, right? I didn't do my undergraduate degree at a world famous university. So that is a myth that I would like to demolish today. And I'm very happy that we have CMU here with us to answer all your questions. And therefore, we've picked, a lot of students that we can, sort of get you that, give you that proof point, right? So as you know, Carnegie Mellon University is one of the world's best, foremost, top, world-class universities, right? And especially in the fields of computer science, in robotics, data science, AI, they're like cutting edge and world leading. They're best of the best. And I would like to therefore motivate a lot of you here today that you can get into Carnegie Mellon University, right? But all you have to do, a lot of things you have to do, but you do have a path to getting there if you go about, like I showed you before, if you make sure your application is strong. And how to make your application strong, you're going to learn about that today. So let me just give you a little bit of motivation, but right after a poll. Okay, so now, how keen are you to learn about Carnegie Mellon's admissions process? Because that's what today is about. Okay, I'm about to end the poll now. All right. Guess what? Most of us are super keen to learn about the admissions process at CMU. I'm sure that's very exciting to my fellow panelists. So let's actually meet some of Galvanize's students who did crack the admissions process at CMU. And again, the reason I'm sharing these students with you here today is to demolish the myth that you have to be from, like the best undergraduate institute. No, because your academics is what got you there, but your academics is not sufficient to get you into CMU. So let's actually look at some of the students that we have guided at Galvanize to get into CMU. And I'm kind of sharing, I'm giving you an overall view of their profile so you can see their projects, their test scores. Our students have permitted us to share these details with other students, so it can be valuable for you as well. So Harni did her master's at Carnegie Mellon in cybersecurity, and she's currently working as a security engineer, right, in the US. Meet Saksham. He did his undergrad in physics at BITS. Pilani, he went to do his master's in computer science as well. So you can see that it's not necessary for your academics to be like super good, right? Like Harini has an excellent GPA of 9.61. Saksham has a GPA of 7.5, but he did some extremely interesting projects, right? And he managed to put his application together. Here's another student who's doing his master's in information security at CMU. So you can see that he has done a lot of projects in this space, and we were able to guide him to go through the application process. Here is Ajit. Again, you can see that students have different profiles. End of the day, what matters is how you stitch it together and how you put your best foot forward, and you'll hear a lot about it more. So meet Bhavika, one of our students who's doing her Master's in Information Systems Management at CMU. This is Hrishikesh. She did his Master's in Architecture, right? And you can, so it doesn't have to be just, computer science related fields, right? CMU is excellent in everything. So that's, you can take a look at how, what his profile was. This is yet another student of ours, Vedant from VIT Vellore. So he did his Master's in Mechanical Engineering. This is Farhan from the BITS Pilani campus. So he hails from India. So he did a Master's in Engineering and Technology Innovation Management, right? How timely, right? And what you really need. So I just hope that gave you a real, it gave you solid proof, and these are just a few of our students who got accepted to CMU. If you would like to hear about more students, what they did, how their profile was, please join our WhatsApp group. We have a WhatsApp community, and we will share more profiles for you, and you will be seeing the link in the chat shortly. So I hope now that we have totally demolished the myth that you need to be from an IIT to get into CMU. IITians, don't get me wrong, so many of you get into CMU, but I want to make sure that everybody understands that they have a shot at it. And it's about how to build their profile. I would love to have our panelists talk to you about the process. There's so many wonderful questions that you have submitted to us, all of you students. We have picked out the sharpest and questions, the questions that most people are confused about, and we have asked our panelists to answer them for you. So before that, let me first introduce to you our eminent panelists for the day, starting with J.R. McGrath. J.R., what an interesting background. He graduated with a Bachelor's of Science in Physics, and then he pursued his Master's in College Administration. So think about it. I mean, I can totally, I can relate to this, because I also did a STEM Master's, and then I was like, okay, but I really want to give this experience to a lot more people. So that's great. So he brings 18 years of experience in the space of helping college students, get into the best schools. And he joined the TEPR Master's Admissions team at Carnegie Mellon in 2021. So he's the Executive Director of Master's Admissions Programs here. So welcome to today's session, J.R. We are so excited to have you, and our students are buzzing with questions for you. Our next panelist here is Mary Theresa, our MT. And she holds a Master's in HR Management, and she is the Associate Director of Business School Relations for Graduate Management Institutions in Central US and Canada. Right? That's quite a responsibility there, but she's amazing at it, because she has more than 20 years of work experience in graduate management education. So at her current role at ETS, she bridges the relationship between ETS and in graduate programs in the US and Canada. So welcome to our session today, MT. We are so excited to have you, and the amount of real life experience that you have. You've guided thousands of students throughout your journey. We are eager to hear the insights that you have for us today. And our final panelist is Michelle. So Michelle holds a Bachelor's in Psychology, and she has more than 14 years of work experience. She is currently with the TOEFL at ETS. She is the Director of Institutional Relations at ETS for TOEFL. And so in her role, she coordinates with academic institutions, organizations around the world. And Michelle has been, she has been working to guide college students or school students who want to do their undergraduate degree program. So she has been in this space for a long time. She understands the aspirations of students, the challenges that they have faced along the way, and she's really good at guiding them on what they need to do, like what you need to do in order to put your best foot forward and how you can achieve your dreams. So welcome to today's session, Michelle. I'm so excited that you are here, and we are looking forward to hearing a lot about the exam changes as well. So please stay tuned. So let's begin our first series of questions with J.R. And here, what we have done is, we received more than 400 questions when we, the moment we said, hey, you're going to have this opportunity to ask your questions to CMU admissions. We got so many questions. We took what we felt were the most, the questions that a lot of students wanted answers to, but they couldn't easily find credible answers online, or they couldn't just look around and ask. Right? So these are very specific questions. They're not the, but they're who better to get answers from than J.R. So J.R., here you go. Let's begin with the first question that is posed to you. What are the cutoffs for test scores? Right? The website at Carnegie Mellon says no minimum cutoffs, but it also says, hey, these are the average scores of our accepted applicants. So how much should I score to get accepted to CMU? And what are the other factors that you will consider during the application process? So over to you, J.R.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we'll start with TOEFL because I think that one is a little bit more straightforward. The overall university has requirements for people to be able to communicate very well in English. So for our TOEFL, you need to have a minimum total score of 100 with no section below a 22. Are there exceptions made here and there based on those? There are, but that's what you should be looking for and essentially trying to achieve. If your scores are at that level, typically the concern for communication it has gone away. I would also say when you look at different programs, though, for example, right, you called out my undergrad in physics. Any of our more, we'll say, real heavy quantitative, maybe engineering, others, there's not as much of a need for, we'll say, like verbal communication. Maybe the interviews aren't as behavioral. So the bar past a minimum score is maybe a little bit lower in those, is like a business school where there's a lot of oral communication, a lot of written communication. The evaluation of English doesn't end just with a TOEFL. For GRE and for other test scores, here are the things that I would say that everybody needs to think through, because as you had said before, everyone is going to get a holistic review. However, when we look at test scores and we look at grades, I'll bring that in because usually what we're trying to figure out initially is, can this person do the work that this program has in its curriculum? And while there's not a minimum score, what I can tell you is that at least on the business school side, and we'll talk about GRE specifically, if someone's below the 50th percentile on the quant section, we get concerned that they won't be able to handle the overall quantitative load in the program. So that, I would say, even though it is not a hard cutoff, that is somewhat of a cutoff of that. If it's below that, we need to really see other strong proof points that someone can do the work. What we will also say to this, though, and I know we're going to kind of explore this, so maybe this first answer will be slightly longer, is that there's a difference of being able to do the work and then being a competitive candidate for the program. Because after we get through all those other things of who can do the work, who can be qualified for the program, then what we're doing is look at that applicant pool and trying to choose the best that's in that applicant pool. So it's not easy to say that if you get a certain score, you are likely to be admitted, because there's going to be all these other factors and you're always up against who applied in your same year. So if anybody's thinking about tests, what I would say is, we want you to take the test. We want you to do your best. If you feel like you took the test and you know you left points on the table, retake the test. Because I know we're going to get into these questions. I've seen the chat a little bit. Financial aid comes into play. There's all those other things, and we won't go down those rabbit holes yet. But if you feel like you've already done your best and you didn't leave points on the table, then start focusing on the other parts of your application to make sure everything else is as strong as it can be if you don't have the super elite score.
Wonderful. That's a very excellent suggestion that, when do you need to retake the test? Should I retake the test? That's another common question. So thank you for answering two questions in one. So, and when you said that you have to try to be above the 50th percentile, it reminded me of some excellent data that ETS gives, which is it tells students the percentiles of their scores based on their undergraduate major, right? So engineering undergraduate majors might 160 is the 50th percentile in quant, right? 160 on 170 sounds really high, but it's the average score if you're an engineering undergrad. So, and it's beautifully classified based on your major. So depending on what field you want to specialize in, please make sure you know what is a good GRE score. Just the same score is not, it's not the same for every field, right? If you're a philosophy major, I hope your AWA score is very good, right? But otherwise, it need not be so high. So it's something you have to, and we can help you with this. So, all right. The next question for JR is on documentation and essays. So applicants submit their resume, their statement of purpose, their letters of recommendation, their transcripts, their test scores. We submit so many things. How much weightage is given to these components? And this question comes because it is the people love to put things into a quantitative framework, and then they can, but I'm sure you will have a more nuanced response, JR.
Sure. So, and let me clarify one thing for everyone listening today. So I know obviously this is about Carnegie Mellon. I run admissions for one of the schools within Carnegie Mellon. The US model is there's not one person that runs admissions for every single student coming into one university. So I'm going to give a little bit more business school. I'll give a little bit of knowledge outside of that, but I also want to make sure that, everyone's kind of understanding the context of my responses and answers. So for us, and we have a wide variety of programs, and looking at the poll, right, like we have MBA programs, we have MS programs, and some that are hugely popular with the audience that we have here today. What we look at first is that, sorry, let me try to answer more directly the question. We do have a rubric of how we evaluate candidates. However, everything has a little bit of art and science to it. It is not just this has this weighting, and if you have this score, it's kind of like a yes or no. It's not a decision tree that automatically leads to the same response, because there is, we'll say, that little bit of art in there. And let me give you an example for these components here. What is most important to us, and why students are usually going to get a postgraduate degree, is that they want to have more and better opportunities on their career progression. So that is usually where we start. We look at someone's resume, we look at someone's career goals, we look at that academic background skill set they have, and we try to start looking at that and figuring out, so what have they already done for the development that we're going to provide? Can we make them competitive for the things that they want to do in the future? That's usually the big first yes or no in terms of all this. Once we get through there, that's where you look into someone's application. And let me tell you right now, as you said before, I've been doing this for a very long time. There is no perfect application. Not like just very cleanly said on that. Everyone has strengths in different areas. You may have an elite undergrad GPA, you may have an elite test score, maybe you're amazing at your current job and your letter recommendation is the most glowing that it can be. We're looking at all these things together, and what we're trying to find is, so for example, if you put like the recommendation letters and the resume together, your resume is a summary of the impact that you've had in your role, but it's you're telling that story. Recommendation letters, in a way, are confirming things or giving maybe nuance or context to other things. So I would say recommendation letters usually support your resume, just as transcripts and test scores go together. I guess to kind of bring this all together and summarize is that every person needs to do their own reflection and be honest with themselves of what areas of my applications are strong, what areas of my applications are maybe not as strong, and how do I use my application as a whole to be able to tell the story of how I can see myself being successful with this program. Because we're reading things on paper before we get to interview stage. We haven't met you. So this is your opportunity to essentially like show us the path. If you can see the path, we can see the path. If you can't connect those dots for us, it's going to be hard for us to connect the dots for you. Hopefully that answers. I know it wasn't exactly an equation, but
that was fantastic, because it brought the focus from, looking at disparate pieces of your application into actually connecting the dots to tell your story, right? So that was very, very powerful. So thank you, J.R. So let's move on to the next question. And this one is, well, this is this question comes to us a lot. It's about students believe that if I submit my application, somebody's going to look at it, right? Is there a possibility that no one will look at my application? Please, over to you.
Yeah, no. So again, from my perspective, in terms of our part of Carnegie Mellon, I cannot guarantee everybody else throughout the university. Every application that is submitted, we review. And I will even say this because this is work that I've done personally. Everyone that has submitted an application, for example, to our full-time MBA program, because that's one that I take a little bit more of a direct hand in, I have watched every single video essay that someone has submitted. I am really trying to ensure that we are finding the best talent that fits with our program, and we are going to do the work to be able to find that talent. And that does go across all of the master's programs at Tepper. I'm not sure if other programs, for example, if someone, and when you say eligibility, right, like you met all the criteria to be able to submit the application, because there's logic there, right? Like if you don't submit certain components or resume or test scores, if you didn't get a waiver, they're not going to let you, it's going to tell you it's an incomplete application. So if it's a complete application, we do look at everyone's application. And I called out one part of it, but that is something that we look at every single person's application, and we do also look at all those other components. Other components are a lot easier though. Like I can look at a spreadsheet with test scores. I can look at a spreadsheet with other things. Hearing from someone is a little bit different. So it was a lot of time this year. We had well over 2,000 applications just to that one program. So that was a lot of meeting new people.
Absolutely. Yep. It is such an interesting role, right? It's such an important responsibility to be able to sift through thousands of applicants and find who are the best fit for the program. Wow. Well, which brings us to, can I apply to more than one program at CMU and specifically at Tepper?
So the answer to that is yes. What I will say though is I would be careful applying to multiple programs, and here's why. Once you apply, and let's say you're a strong candidate for multiple programs, because that happens a lot, especially with the type of degree programs, and even especially, and I'll call one out. So we have an excellent program in product management. We have an MS degree. We have an MBA program that has a specialization there. We obviously have a phenomenal computer science school and department. So a lot of times someone could be a good fit for multiple programs. However, if you get asked that question, why did you apply to multiple programs? What questions do you still have? You need to have a good answer to that. If you get the whole way to the point of the process where you've already submitted all that information and you still don't know which program is the right fit for you, then there's a little bit of hesitation of, is it the right time for you to be in any of those programs? Because have you not done enough research? Do you not know the career progression that you want to go on? So you can do that, but I would do that with hesitation only because a lot of those questions can be answered before you submit the application. So in my opinion, I would say reach out to those admissions officers, reach out to alumni, reach out to current students, start to understand the type of development that you're going to get in the one program compared to another, and how that's going to set you up for your career goals. Very seldom will I tell you that I feel like I mate with a candidate that has a good reason to be applying to two programs at one time.
Great. And the next one is a slightly more subtle variation on the same question, but a very different perspective in the sense, okay, I can't apply to two different programs, maybe, but can I apply to one program and do major in multiple areas? So how does that work? Dual programs?
Yeah, so I'm going to start macro and then I'll kind of go into specifics. Overall, the ethos of Carnegie Mellon University as a whole, we believe the world's biggest problems will be solved interdisciplinary. So no matter if you are an MBA student or a student in computer science, you are able, and now each program has a different curriculum depending on how many electives you take. For example, our MBA program, you can take as many electives outside of the business school that you want in terms of your curriculum. So for example, when someone's thinking through, do I want to do a dual degree between an MBA and computer science? If you meet the prereqs for computer science courses and maybe you really only want to take 2 or 3 or 4, you don't really want to take a whole degree, you can do that as an MBA student. However, that's kind of like the top level. We do have dual degree programs. They're right there on our website. You can look at those. They're under curriculum. We have one with software engineering. We have one with public policy, etc. There's a number of them. So you can do that. That's where you need to research a little bit more, because usually there's a specific order in which you start in the different schools. So some programs you start in the business school and then go to the other school. Sometimes you start in, say, like the engineering college and then come to the business school. So I bring that up because you would want to prioritize the school's application in the school that you start. And then you can apply to the other school. And you can either do that at the same time, if that is a critical decision for you, or you can be in one of those other colleges while being a student there. You can apply to be that dual degree student in another program. So there is flexibility there. There is versatility. And then obviously, even if you did make that choice to be a dual degree student, and after going to your home school, your first school, if you choose not to enroll in the second program, that's okay. You would have to let that second school know. At Carnegie Mellon, at least right now, all those dual degree decisions, they're separate decisions. So either you get admitted to both schools and you can do the dual degree, or if one denies you, then you would only have the opportunity for the other program. So it does give you that flexibility, but you do have to do a little bit additional research to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success for the admissions process.
Absolutely. And I think that research is all good practice for the real thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is an interesting question. What happens if I get waitlisted by CMU, and by when can I expect a final decision? And moreover, because I'm waitlisted, does this mean that there's a higher chance of getting accepted? Like people who get waitlisted want to know what happens.
Sure. So I'll give as much clarity here as possible. And please, if I don't get to everything, ask follow-up questions. So one, I think that you're being put on a wait list for a reason. The admissions committee sees some sort of potential in you that you still could be admitted to the school. So overall, I would say, if you talk about like, do you still have a chance, that the answer to that is definitely yes. I would say that this is where, and again, I can only really talk with the business school programs in particular here because of how our decision process works. Those that have had an interview and get waitlisted likely have a higher probability of getting off of the wait list than someone that has been waitlisted and that hasn't heard anything from the school other than you submitted your application and you got waitlisted. For us in particular, we put out a new decision for every candidate in every round. So for example, if someone applied in the first round in October, and they were waitlisted in that first round. When we put out decisions for our January round, and those decisions usually go out in March, we will give you a new decision as either admit, waitlist, deny. Each round you get to say, do I still want to be on the waitlist? And the way that we do that is that if we are going to pull a wait list, we will look at those that have already said, yes, keep me on the wait list first, and then go through those. So I would say on both sides, keeping engaged with the school is going to be helpful, because if you're pulling a wait list later in the year, maybe it's April, you typically want to pull people that you think are still interested, rather than those that may have chosen maybe to already go to another school at that point. So lastly, what I will say is, and it's on this engagement side, and I know this is a tough part, and it's a business school, so it's a little bit different than maybe some of the more technical. It does help to continue to engage with the community as you're on the wait list, because as we start talking through, and for me, the way I do it is I go out to my team and I say, is there anyone that we haven't been able to offer admission to? If we have a few spots remaining, like, who would be at the top of your list? And those that they can think of, oh, I had a great conversation with this person, or I know that this person has continually attended events throughout the year, that is going to give you more of an opportunity than just being a name and list. And I know someone put about, how many. I mean, I said before, most of our programs are high volume programs. So, if we're looking at a wait list that has, I'll give a round number, because it ebbs and flows throughout the year, but 500 people and we have 10 spots, right? Like it's hard to go through a list of 500 to find maybe 10 or 20. If we have 10 seats, maybe we admit 20. So the more you engage, the more you will have an opportunity for someone in the room to say, can we please look at this person again?
Okay, that was a very nuanced response. And now this is yet another question that's interesting. This is about MBA applicants. And people have looked at the CMU website and they saw that 1% of people of the class had a background with less than 1 year of work experience. They want to know, well, if you accepted such applicants, what was their profile like? And secondly, how does the interview panel look at someone who does not have work experience, or somebody with less than a year's work experience? How do you evaluate them as a prospective MBA applicant?
Perfect. This goes right back to career. So when we're looking at someone, depending on what they want to do, does their years of work experience directly affect their competitiveness for that career goal? And I'll give you a couple of examples. There's probably a lot on this call that may be interested in product management. If you're looking at that as a career in the US, most of the time, like an actual full product manager at top companies, they want a minimum of 5 years of work experience, because that role is very specific in terms of you need to influence without authority, and you need to have some experience and finesse of understanding how businesses and corporations and organizations run. So someone that has an off-the-chart score, undergrad grades, good internships, it really doesn't matter, right? Like, if we know that you said your target goal is this, and here are your target companies, if they have a strong cutoff, then what we want to do is we want to share that information back with you and say, you just simply need to wait, because it's not going to be worth your time and money, even if you get a high scholarship, to do the program now, because you're not going to get into those career opportunities that you're most interested in. So for this, 100% about career. I would say on the international side, and this is just as we'll call it there's always exceptions to every general rule. International candidates on the business side for an MBA program should have a minimum of 3 years. If you don't have the 3 years, there are going to be a number of opportunities that are just cut for you. But in particular, you have to think on this other side, right? Even though with a STEM extension now, you get 3 years of work authorization, someone still has to be willing to sponsor you. There's only so many visa spots. they have to put you at a certain salary level. Like there's all these different components to it. So they're going to definitely prioritize candidates with the 3+ years. MS program's different because you're going for levels of roles that don't require that type of experience in terms of being part of organizations. But you need to know that on the career side and ask those questions. And if you are an outlier, you need to be able to articulate why you can be successful as an outlier. Sorry, I think you're still muted.
So something that was so informative, and especially you laying out clearly the 3 years experience for MBA applicants or international applicants. And one suggestion that we often at Galvanize give students who have less, very little work experience, but want to apply to management related programs is to apply for a master's in engineering management or a master's in management, and you have all of these allied programs that you are very much suited to apply to, and it still gives you, and you can still take some courses that overlap with the business school, right? So these are some options for other students. So our next question is about the application criteria for the MBA program. This a lot of people are intrigued about the type of future business leader program, and also the deferred MBA program. What are the selection criteria for these programs?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. So I'll say for us, this is slightly newer. I think we've had this out for maybe 2 to 3 cycles now in terms of application cycles. So as of now, this is a program where we typically have looked more strongly at candidates that have had some US experience already in terms of maybe they did their undergraduate degree there, maybe they did some internships. We are evaluating on a yearly basis, so we haven't determined whether or not we are going to look to kind of open up a little bit farther. But as of right now, for us, this has been a little bit more tied to some US experience in their profile, usually as someone that is finishing their undergraduate degree or less than 1 year out from their undergraduate degree.
Got it. Okay. One more question on the MBA program. I think a lot of our students have expressed interest in, many applicants have a family background or a family business, or they are a young entrepreneur during their bachelor's degree, and they would like to know, should they apply for a deferred MBA or a regular MBA? What do you recommend?
Yeah, so I would say on this one, I would probably go regular MBA, but let me kind of expand on that a little bit, because I think this is good just overall for entrepreneurs and family businesses. And I'll give you an example here. So someone that has an entrepreneurial journey or family business, you need to be able to tell your story. You need to be able to kind of like walk us through that, because on the other side of that, if someone works for a Fortune 500 company or a brand name that in a normal role and say like I was a financial analyst or I was a software engineer, without you telling me a whole lot about what your projects were particularly, I have a pretty good understanding of what was your training program, the types of things that was expected of you, and the environment that you're in. But as someone that's in a family business or someone that is entrepreneurial, you have to tell your story more, because we can't make those inferences on our own. So I say a regular MBA because you likely want to have some more, I'm going to say like proof points in the way that as a family business, there's always this worry of like, well, were you really running the business, or were you put into some role and maybe there wasn't a whole lot of work or impact that you had. So having a few of the examples and saying, I worked on this, I expanded this business line or this product, is going to be key to be able to tell that story. So I would say most should go towards a regular MBA.
Okay. That was quite helpful as well. So now we have a question on someone who doesn't have full-time work experience, but they do have internships. How are they viewed for the deferred MBA program?
So I think that, and I'll just talk about recommendations as a whole. You want to have someone that can talk about your abilities in detail. And this also goes back to something I said before, is your application is a culmination of how you're going to tell your overall story. So for example, someone that has great test scores and great GPA, quantitative background, your recommender probably doesn't have to hit that point home again. You want to probably pick someone that helps round out what you want what components of your story that you want told. So maybe it is someone in an internship. It could be a professor that maybe you did an engaged learning project with. But think through someone that is going to be able to hit some of the points home that maybe you haven't already done in another part of your application. But the biggest part of this, regardless if they can talk about your work product or not, this is that nuance, because it's, like you said, the deferred admission program. So before full-time experience, they need to know you well. They need to be able to give some details and possibly like a couple little examples or stories of why you are someone that is a great fit, or why you excel more than maybe others that have had typical similar experiences or roles in the past. So detail is the most important piece here. It's not about this person has a really cool job or role and I just know them. If we get someone that has, we'll call it a business rock star that writes a recommendation but puts no detail behind it, there's not a whole lot of weight putting behind that recommendation.
Understood. So it's about the story and it's about connecting the dots, right? It's about explaining your candidacy in a way that makes it's convincing, right? It brings meaning. So great. So yes.
I'm sorry, I'm going to give one more thing, because I think this is a really thing of, I always know the candidates like, how do we get behind the veil of like understanding maybe discussions that are happening? What I can tell you is that anytime that there's something about a candidate that we still have a little bit of question on, one of the first places we go, no matter what that question is, we go to the recommendation. Because a lot of times we ask very specific questions about this. They'll say, what type of lessons did this person learn? Were they able to be successful in certain, scenarios or environments? So, even if it's, can they be, competitive in the classroom or whatever it is, one of the first places we go to answer unanswered questions are the recommendations, because that's one of the personal things of someone else giving an evaluation of you and the skill set that you bring to the program. So choose wisely.
Very true. Choose wisely. And so the next question is on deferring your offer of admission. And can students defer? Yes, they can, but under what circumstances? And how is that? How did the university respond to such requests?
Sure. So I'm going to give you two big categories here. So the first one is we are, I would say, more generous in granting deferrals in scenarios where someone needs to defer for a reason outside of their control. They did everything they can and visa was denied. Okay. Appointments weren't available. Something, for example, and I hear this, a lot, like issues with family business. Family, member got sick, you need to provide care or additional financial support. Things that aren't really within your control, but you have decided because of your own maybe values or the situation is you really just can't join the program that year. Much more generous in terms of number that are approved. Other scenario, you're indecisive, right? Like it really comes down to, I don't know if this is the right time. Maybe I should I do this? I just think next year will be better for me. Those are all fine things, but I would say the hit rate on those is a little bit lower because the scenario, and this is what I usually tell people at that point, Because for a deferral, typically what we ask you to do, especially if we're giving a spot and if we're keeping the scholarship the same, we ask you to deposit. So putting your money down to kind of already secure that in the future. If someone's indecisive, I usually have like a one-on-one conversation, and I usually tell them to save their money. Like, just reapply. There's not going to be any red mark on your file. We're not going to hold that against you. Like, if you're just not ready, then you're not ready. And in a way, I would rather you reapply, because for doing this for years, those candidates, even if they're granted a deferral and accepted with a deposit, less decide to enroll in the program in the following year. Other things come up, right? So for us, this is not the scenario of we just want your money and your deposit. I want someone to make the decision that is going to be good for them, and I don't want them to have a higher risk of losing that deposit money. So I would rather them reapply than defer. But if it's something out of your control, talk to us. We all know that you're people. Like, we don't want to put you in scenarios to say there's 1,000 people in line behind you, just make the choice. We want to hear your story, we want to understand it, and if we can help, we're going to help.
That's a very important point, right? Talk to us, because often a lot of students hesitate to reach out to admissions, staff. But the staff are actually eagerly awaiting student queries. They love to answer these queries because that's what they do. And so it's very encouraging that that you've asked students to just be open and reach out, right? Mm-hmm. That's great. So, so this is about, well, I was not accepted to CMU this year. They rejected me. And then, can I still try again next year? What should I do in the intervening time? How do I, how do I project myself the second time around?
Yeah, and I think that's great. So I'll say a couple of things here. So one, please apply if you still are interested and you haven't joined another school. One of the ways that we try to show that is that we want people to reapply, is that we waive your application fee for the next year. We don't want you to pay again to just be evaluated again. If it didn't work out for that year, then I think that's an awesome opportunity for some personal reflection. What do you think went wrong? Was it scores? Was it things within your control? Maybe it was work experience, etc. And I would say this, and this is the tough part about this role. Like I already said before, like I always want to talk to people. I want to have conversations. I can't have every conversation with every candidate that maybe didn't get admission and have a personal 30-minute review of their entire application and give them advice on specific things that they can do differently. I would say for most candidates, again, if they really look hard at their application and kind of look at class profiles or read through the website and really kind of understand the things that we're valuing, a lot of times it's pretty apparent. And I would say the things that can be done quickly, and I know we're on an ETS, webinar here as well, is that test scores are one thing that you can change more quickly than almost anything else in your application. You can't change your years of work experience quickly. You can possibly get a new job, but then you're not going to be in that job that long to be able to show the impact at the new company. So certain things just take a little bit more time. So sometimes it is next year, or sometimes you may look at this and be like, okay, well, now that I realize, again, right, like I had 3 years and I want to do product management, maybe I need to wait for those extra 2 years, because not everything is dictated by the school. Sometimes it's dictated by those corporate partners where everybody want to work. And we want to make sure that, again, we're bringing people in for success.
That's true. No, it's, and sometimes we've also seen candidates who, they think they'll reapply the next year, and then they fall in love with their job, and then they want to keep working for a few more years, and then they've actually transformed a lot of their understanding of perspectives, and they can apply with a different pattern in which they connect the dots, right? So great, thank you. And now to a very, another sought after topic, scholarships. How does CMU decide, to which applicants they will award scholarships?
Yeah, so again, I can talk a little bit more about the business school. So let me give everyone kind of like a little landscape kind of view of this. So one, I think it's an excellent question to ask any of the different admissions officers, what does scholarship look like for this program and your in particular school? And what I mean by that is, for example, full-time MBA programs have been around longer. Typically, alumni, so the program's been around longer. Alumni will donate money. There's endowment funds, like scholarship availability is usually much higher. In some programs that maybe haven't been around as much or as established, maybe the scholarship funds aren't as plentiful as other programs. So I think a great question always is asking what is the average scholarship for a program. And I'll give you an example. So like I already kind of articulated a little bit on the MBA program, scholarships go anywhere from no scholarship up to a full ride. A lot of times on the MS programs, because they're a little bit shorter, they cost a little bit less. Scholarships usually range, more in the $0 to $15,000 range. Part-time programs probably similar, maybe they go up to $25,000 or $30,000. So I think one, you need to understand what is the possibility for scholarships, because if you're misaligned from the get-go, like if the program only offers scholarships up to $20,000, but that is not something that you can afford as a whole, then you're essentially going into a situation where you're not going to get the result that you want. Not because you don't deserve it, is because the resources aren't there to provide it. No one gets a scholarship at that level. In terms of, then looking at how do you set yourself up for success with that in terms of scholarships, this is where I said before a little bit, like there's times where you meet the eligibility requirement, and then there's times, right, that you're now competitive against everybody else that's getting admission into the program. So every program wants to then look at what is important for them, and then how can they essentially utilize that to incentivize who they feel like are the top students to be able to come in the program. So for us, and I'll say this, we view career competitiveness as the top determination of scholarship. And then it goes into those other categories of test scores, undergraduate GPA, performance in the interview, et cetera. So the best thing to do is to do your research before applying to the program. Understand if this is a good fit. What do I need to have in terms of my profile to likely be at or above averages in the class profile? And maybe that's years of work experience, test scores, et cetera. I would say it's very unusual for someone to be below all those averages and get a higher end scholarship for that program.
Definitely. We have seen that our applicants who get scholarships, the university wants them to attend, right? So they have to stand out from the other applicants, and so that's really important. Great. A little bit about assistantships in terms of research assistantship, teaching assistantship, other graduate assistantships. What percentage of students get these? I know it varies from one school to the other. And a follow-up question is, if I want to try for one of these assistantships, should I wait till I get accepted by the university before I reach out to professors, or should I start reaching out to them before I get an acceptance?
Yeah, so I think it's an excellent question. And I'll give everyone kind of a general rule of thumb here in terms of US schools. If you're a private university, most private universities do not have assistantships in the way that they're like tuition remission. So it's not going to like cover your tuition. It's not going to cover a percentage of it. Usually if you get on-campus work and you can't work directly for professors, it's going to be paying you at an hourly rate. So I think that's usually one of the biggest questions, at least about this category, is usually when someone thinks about assistantship, sometimes they think that tuition may be reduced or covered in doing that work. Most private institutions do not have that. Most public institutions have that in the US. In terms of these in particular ones, so for most business programs, there's not really going to be an RA or TA given out at admission, because typically the professors want to get to know you in their discipline. So you usually take a class with them first before they usually offer some sort of work to work with them. However, there are times where I've seen networking work to try to get some sort of employment before a program starts. But that's where you need to research that professor, understand the specific research they're doing, and you need to provide, you've already done that type of work or have that passion and have that type of work for them to choose you over someone that's already in the program that they've already gotten to know, that's already taken their class. So I would say on business programs, a little bit more rare. I know we talked about this and there were a few people looked at PhD programs. I think that is a completely different answer, because almost every PhD program is specifically about a particular professor or particular research that department is doing within that discipline that you're trying to get a PhD. And I think that a lot of admissions are tied directly to the matching of those students with those professors. So hopefully that answers it, but happy to answer any follow-up questions if you don't feel like I hit on everything needed.
No, definitely, it did. And as you said, the specificity of matching is what's important, right? A spray and pray approach does not work here. So yeah. Great. So this is a specific question on what if I submitted my application after the financial deadline? Is it going to affect me in any way?
Yeah, so I'll say for us, at least at Tepper, we don't have a financial deadline. Now I pair that with, if you're planning out when to apply for your program, I would always say, especially we're in June, right? So the next application cycle doesn't open until October. I would always apply in the earliest round that you can for two reasons. More spots are available and more scholarships are available. So the earlier you hit someone's budget, the more likely you are to get a generous scholarship.
Right.
However,
and that's why we always recommend students to apply for the early deadlines and first round, because and often people are not aware of it, and student mindset is the last deadline, right? The last minute, just at 11:59 p.m. I hit submit. So if one can resist that temptation and actually be one of the earliest to apply, then as you said, that's when you get a chance to tap into the budget of the university for scholarships.
What I will say, and again, this maybe will take out possibly maybe like the top 5 schools, but if you apply within the first 2 rounds, there's usually not that much of a difference or no difference at all. And that would usually be kind of like the September, October deadline and the January deadline. Once you get past that, depending on how many already accepted offers, right? Like this is where like you're then trying to diversify the class, and you don't know what scholarships available. I will tell you though, I've had some candidates that, and this is not like, this is the outlier situation. If you apply late, for whatever reason, maybe there is money available. The person that just said, hey, I can't come this year, that asked for that deferral, the question we just asked, talked about earlier, maybe that person had a good, really strong scholarship and you kind of fit a lot of the profile that they had. So we'll just transfer that scholarship over to that candidate. But a good rule of thumb is first or second round will likely put you in the best opportunity.
Great. So this is a question on the part-time work opportunities available on campus.
Yeah, so I'll say this, they are plentiful. So you can always do on-campus work. Like even in particular, I think we hire 13 grad students in the admissions office. Our career office hires grad students, our leadership center. And then there's just the general, helping the university work type of on-campus work. I think these are really good opportunities for your first year. And as an international candidate, this is one thing that you may want to look at. So a lot of times what needs to happen, because a lot of students will do part-time internships to make money. For an international student, what needs to happen is you need to have that summer internship, and it needs to be required for everyone to get the CPT at that time. I've seen, depending on certain schools, right, like you can have an optional internship class after that, and then they can still have CPT throughout that process. So there will be some opportunities for international students to work outside the university to gain experience. And I will tell you that typically outside organizations pay better than the university in terms of hourly rate. And or you can obviously look at, I mean, the best thing right now is remote work, right? Like you have more opportunities for side hustles to probably make better money than you would on campus. So they are there, but I think people should kind of be strategic of when and where they should choose what option.
All right, that's a great answer, and you also pointed people in the right directions, right? I remember in my first quarter at Stanford, I wanted to do something very different. But I still wanted to earn some money. I joined a telesales team at Stanford, where students at Stanford would actually call alumni and ask for donations, and it was some amazing experience because it broke the barrier in my mind to talk to people and literally sell, right? It's not a typical experience, but it gives pushes you in one part of in one dimension, right? And that you might not have exercised before. So there are some interesting opportunities on campus, but definitely off campus pays bigger bucks. I agree. All right. This is a question on a very popular question. We get a lot of students who have done their undergraduate degree in an area other than computer science, and they want to do their master's. They want to apply for a master's in computer science, and we have actually seen a lot of students successfully do this, right? And if there is enough demand, a separate a webinar might be justified. But how does CMU look at such applicants?
Yeah, so this goes back, and I'll say it in this way. It's almost like the entrepreneurship or family business question, right? If someone has an undergraduate degree in computer science, that they're prepared to do a master's in that type of work because it's technical work. To never have coded before and try to jump into something and like you're just not going to be able to swim in those classes. So anybody that has essentially like the non-traditional background for what you're trying to go into, it is up to you to paint the picture of what have you done to be prepared for that coursework. And it can be, maybe you've done, direct certifications through specific technologies. Maybe it's, you've done your own coding. Maybe it's your personal passion and that's what you do. And you can show a whole portfolio of work doing that. And so what's interesting, and I'll say this because our product management program is a joint program between us and computer science. And in particular, we typically look for those that have those specific skills, but we do have students every year that do not come from that traditional background. And it's again, what we're most worried about is making sure they can be successful in it. So the students that have been successful in that process, they have painted that picture, or they've also said, here's what I've already done, but here's also what I'm willing to do before the program starts. So that's also maybe kind of an encouragement to apply early if you are an outlier, because it gives more opportunity for you to shore up things before the program starts.
Okay. Apply early, early bird gets the worm. So
yeah.
Now, this is a sort of like a summary question. What general advice would you give students who aspire to study at universities like CMU, world-class universities? What would you recommend students do? And keep in mind that these are not necessarily students in the year of their application. This could be somebody who is in their first or second year of college. So they still have enough time to build their profile. Or this could be somebody who's working and can wait for another year or two to apply. What advice would you have for them, for everybody?
Yeah, so I think it's a great question. And it's going to be an interest. I'll say, like, it's usually people are surprised by this initially, is that I think the first thing that everybody really needs to do is they need to do the appropriate self-reflection. And the reason why I say that is that we typically get, in a way, like two sets of candidates. Someone that has done an extensive amount of research and they think that they know exactly what they want to do. Like they've planned out their entire career for the next 15 years. Like, I'm going to work at Google for 5 years and I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do this. That is not the expectation. That doesn't mean that if you've already planned that out, that's a bad thing, but it's not an expectation is that you feel like you already know all of your chess moves down the board. What we really expect from every candidate is that you can have a really good conversation of the why. So why do you think that our school would be a good choice? Why do you want to do this degree? And how is that going to help you do these other things? And that does not mean, again, that you have to say, I know exactly how everything is going to turn out after. But you need to know yourself well. So maybe it's the type of work that you want to do, the values that you have, the community that you want to be a part of. There's all these different components when you're choosing a master's or like a postgraduate degree. And it's usually very apparent if someone hasn't really thought through things enough to have a good conversation. All we want you to do is be able to have a good conversation. And that may lead into that first interaction with admissions, and then we can go through some other things. And then every interaction after that, it's going to provide more information and more clarity. So hopefully by the time you get to the point of that you're applying or having an interview, you're able to have a really good, rich conversation about why this is a good choice for you and why this is going to help you develop into that professional that you want to be going forward. So I always say that everybody needs to do that first step of like, look at yourself. And if you can answer your why questions, if this is a good idea, then you're ready to probably start interacting with someone else about it. Sorry, you're still on mute.
That was a splendid response, because a lot of students think that they always think about what should I do outside, right? You've sort of spun the table around and said, start looking inside as well and see how you can then bridge the dots to the outside. So that's great. So, and now, J.R., thank you so much. It's been fantastic. And we are going to move to our ETS panelists as well, because there's a lot of questions on the new GRE, the new TOEFL. But here's a quick poll, because we want to know if people are aware of the changes to the GRE and the TOEFL exams, and how aware are you? This is going to be an interesting poll as well. Another few seconds. All right, we're about to end the poll. And for Theresa May and Michelle, the answer is the majority of students actually want to know more about the changes to the GRE and the TOEFL, right? Less than 30% are fully aware of these changes. More than 70% of students have some understanding or not enough understanding. So I think it's now the perfect time to turn to the experts at ETS to answer questions on changes to the test. So